Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today we're going to take a look at a blog post from November 2020, and it is entitled, Two Heads Are Better Than One. Two Heads Are Better Than One. This post is another note on getting unstuck. Before I tell you this short story, allow me to disclose my reason for sharing. I am in the process of completing a task of which I had the opportunity to view the finished work as opposed to live out. To see something done is one thing, and to do it yourself is something else. I had a second cousin, Yvonne B. Miller, who obtained her PhD, and she wished me well in my studies. I learned more from her obituary and a YouTube interview than I had the opportunity to discuss with her in a one-on-one conversation. Senator Miller broke the combined gender and color barrier in 1983 when she was the first Black woman to win a seat in the House of Delegates, the oldest continuously meeting legislative body in the Western Hemisphere. Lewis, 2012, Washington Post. I also had 3 friends to go into PhD programs before I started, but I was not privy to all the intricacies of their experiences. One stopped because her advisor left Carnegie Mellon University and left the school vacant of her area of interest. Another left Morgan State University before finishing, but after some time off, she has returned to finish what she started. A third left a school in Florida after realizing it was not what she wanted after several years of doing the work. Although challenged by the vicissitudes of life, there are few that surpass the level of sheer joy she exudes in this season. The stories of Black women in PhD programs that I have come to know are far too numerous to share in this space. However, I challenge you to consider their abstracts to get a glimpse at their processes and procedures. See links below. So with all this in mind, I share stories and nuggets in this space so that I leave a trail behind from which others can glean. If no one else other than my nieces and nephews gain insight from this space, then that's just fine with me. They are my heirs. Now, on to the short story. Last night, I found myself stuck. Once again, I needed to select the method of data analysis and sources of data for one of my 2 research questions. I figured out one, but the other was giving me a literal headache. In that moment, I received a reply to a text message that I sent earlier. In the reply of my friend, she asked how I was doing. To this, I responded, I'm doing well. I'm scratching my head at one part of my proposal. I think I'm going to phone a friend. And yes, I phoned a friend who graduated with her PhD a few years ago from my program and left a message. So I called another friend, Dr. Rebecca, who graduated from Penn State, and she answered. She allowed me to talk out the short version of my theoretical framework, selection of case study methodology, rationale for the use of a logic model as the analytical technique for my second question, and data sources for the first question. I told her that I was stuck and that it was because I had too many options to consider for artifacts. The resolution from our conversation employing multimodal analysis. Sometimes it takes talking things out with a friend to work things out in your mind. 2 heads are better than one. Now, the links that I shared in that blog post include the dissertations and authors of Black women who I came to know along my PhD journey, one of which being Rebecca Bayak, PhD, Penn State. Her dissertation was entitled Exploring the African Songo Game and How Gameplay Enhances Multiple Literacies Among Adult Players in Cameroon and the United States. So there are a few things that I want to reflect and talk about as it relates to the blog post. The first one being the power of legacy. Dr. Yvonne Bond Miller left a legacy behind. She was able to do something in my family that no one else has repeated since. And she not only left a legacy with us, she left a legacy with her work. And as a result, her legacy lives on to inspire others. And I'm glad that I'm able to glean from her legacy, whether it was her video, whether it was her obituary, whether it was the graduation card that she sent to me with notes of encouragement, whether it was the conversations that we had before she fell ill. She will forever be remembered with me, and as a result of me sharing her story on my blog post, others will be able to learn from her as well. Shared journeys from the other Black women who have trailblazed the way of obtaining a PhD. I learned that it can be done. And I also learned some of the things to be mindful of along the journey, whether it's the challenges of finding an advisor or having a program that fits your research interests, or things just not being the right time, but returning to it once time permits. Whatever the case may be, if you start a PhD journey, I want to encourage you to finish it. And if you find out along the way that it's not everything that you thought it would be, and perhaps another program or perhaps the PhD journey is not for you, it's okay to stop and find your own way. There's more than one way to demonstrate your expertise than obtaining a PhD, and that's okay too. It's important to collaborate and obtain community support. Reaching out to a friend for advice is something that I do not take lightly. People are busy, and sometimes once they're done with work, they are finished for real. And although they love you, they might not necessarily want to revisit all of the challenges that go along with obtaining a PhD. So I was grateful to my friend for being able to take the time to talk with me to help resolve a challenge I was facing. By reaching out to a friend, two heads were indeed better than one. I was able to articulate where I was in my process, bounce ideas off of her, get feedback as well as insight as far as what was possible in terms of next steps in order to move forward. Now, that conversation was able to move me further than I was able to get on my own while being frustrated. So sometimes it's very important to reach out to someone else to help you get unstuck. Collaboration is essential in academic and professional spaces, particularly for those of us who are a part of marginalized communities. Why? Because a lot of times we're the first ones in our family, we're the first ones in our community who are doing the specific work that we are seeking after, whether that is a PhD or a career in a field that's not similar to anyone else in our family. So being able to talk to others can help you navigate that unfamiliar space. And it's not to say that you're not capable. It's to say that you need some help along the way. No one knows everything. Everyone has to go through a learning process in order to achieve their next steps. How else will you progress? You don't learn by osmosis. Now, some people might have photographic memories, and that's good for them. But even if I had a photographic memory, I would need to figure out how to seek out new information. And being able to bounce ideas off of someone else can help you navigate that new space. With that being said, I want to ask you this question. When was the last time you reached out for help, and how did it transform your challenge into a solution? Here are some tips to help you get unstuck. Number 1, phone a friend. Identify someone you trust who can provide insight or a listening ear. Number 2, talk it out. Sometimes explaining your thought processes aloud reveals solutions. Number 3, build a community. Foster relationships with others in your field who understand your journey. Number 4, document your process. Share your stories and solutions to create a trail for others, just as others have for you. Now, I want to encourage you to reflect on who you can lean on when you need support and to be that person for someone else. Pay it forward. That's a part of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast, website, Patreon, social media channels. These are all opportunities for me to share my story and the stories of those that I came across along my journey so that I can help someone else think about how they can make it through their next steps. Once again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review the podcast to help it become more discoverable. Remember, no one gets through life or academia alone. Reach out, connect, and share your journey. I'm your host, Dr. Renee Jordan. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.